When people experience emotions they are not ready to reveal, their behavior often betrays them in subtle ways. These signs are not always dramatic, but if you pay attention, you begin to notice the quiet patterns. Human beings, as Dr. Jordan Peterson often points out, are complicated creatures whose actions can conceal as much as they reveal. And when someone is wrestling internally with feelings they don't want you to see, their small actions tell a much larger story. The first sign is hesitation. Imagine a person who clearly wants to engage with you, but every step forward seems followed by a pause, as if they are holding back. They may text you and then vanish for hours. They may start a conversation, but cut it short when it gets too personal. This hesitation is not indifference. It's a push and pull between their inner world and the fear of exposure. They are cautious, as if revealing too much might change everything. Think of it like someone standing at the edge of a lake they want to dive in, but the cold water terrifies them. You notice that pause, that tension, and it says more than words ever could. A second sign is the way their attention slips out in moments when they think no one notices. For example, their eyes linger a little longer than expected, or they catch themselves smiling when they shouldn't. This is not the obvious gaze of admiration, but something quieter, almost accidental. They will glance away quickly, as though caught doing something forbidden. The truth is, they are fighting themselves. On one side is the desire to express how much they care, and on the other side is the fear of vulnerability. You can feel this struggle in the way their energy shifts around you. They may act composed, but the undercurrent tells another story. The third sign is the paradox of distance and closeness. They may create unnecessary barriers, avoiding situations where emotions might surface, but at the same time, they never fully detach. In fact, they often find small excuses to remain connected. A casual message, a question that doesn't really need asking, or a subtle way of checking on you without making it obvious. This balancing act between retreat and approach is exhausting for them, yet it reveals how much you matter. If you didn't, they wouldn't bother maintaining even that fragile thread. Jordan Peterson often emphasizes that human relationships are shaped by responsibility and honesty. When someone is fighting their feelings, it is usually because they are afraid of the responsibility that comes with expressing them. To admit affection or care is to open the door to commitment, to possible rejection, and to the chaos that comes when life changes direction. So rather than walking boldly through that door, they linger in the hallway. They pretend indifference, but the cracks always show. If you think carefully, these signs are not random. They reflect a deeper truth about human psychology. We are driven by both approach and avoidance. We want closeness, but we fear the cost of that closeness. This tension is visible in the micro expressions, the half-formed sentences, the choices that seem inconsistent. That inconsistency is, in itself, a message. Consider the example of someone who makes excuses for why they cannot spend more time with you. Yet when you step back, they are suddenly present again. That oscillation is not about business. It is about conflict. They are protecting themselves while simultaneously craving connection. It is an emotional tug of war, and though they may never admit it, their behavior keeps signaling it again and again. Another layer to this is self-deception. People often hide their feelings not only from others, but also from themselves. They convince themselves that it's just friendship or that they don't really care. But the human mind is clever at masking truth, and at the same time, it leaks out in action. They might defend themselves with logic, yet their nervousness when you walk into the room reveals what logic tries to bury. That tension is the essence of fighting one's feelings, reason attempting to dominate emotion, but never quite succeeding. From a motivational perspective, there's something powerful about recognizing these small signs. It's not about exposing or pressuring the other person. It's about understanding the dynamics of human behavior. Sometimes, the person who resists the most is the one who feels the most. Their silence, their hesitation, their distance are not voids. They are filled with meaning. The key is not to obsess over every detail, but to view the pattern as a whole. At the same time, It's important to remember that people's battles are their own. If someone is struggling with emotions they cannot share, it reflects their personal journey. You cannot force clarity from them. You can only notice, interpret, and decide what it means for you. Patience becomes essential here. If the connection is meant to surface, it eventually will. If not, those signs serve as reminders of the complexity of human connection, rather than disappointments. In moments like these, it's helpful to reflect inward. Why do we look so carefully for signs in the first place? Often, it's because we seek certainty in an uncertain world. We want to know if we matter, if someone values us, if there is more beneath the surface. But perhaps the deeper lesson is that our worth is not determined by whether another person fights or reveals their feelings. What matters most is how we carry ourselves in the face of uncertainty. When Jordan Peterson speaks of responsibility and meaning, he often connects it to courage. Courage, in this case, may mean being willing to acknowledge what you sense without demanding that the other person confirm it. It means living truthfully, even if others cannot. It also means respecting that each person has their own battles to face, and their timing is not yours to control. So the three signs, hesitation, accidental attention, and the paradox of closeness and distance, are like clues scattered along a trail. They do not provide the full answer, but they hint at what lies beneath. Whether you follow that trail or let it fade is a choice. The important thing is to see these moments not as frustrations, but as insights into the human heart. In the end, when someone fights their feelings, it is less about you and more about them. They are wrestling with fear, doubt, and responsibility. And while you may notice the signs, the true challenge is to remain grounded in your own values, to move forward with integrity, and to understand that hidden emotions, no matter how intense, are not the foundation on which you build your life. Instead, they are reminders that beneath the surface of every human being lies a world of unspoken battles. When you pay attention to people, it becomes clear that most of the struggles we experience with others are reflections of struggles happening within them. Someone fighting their feelings for you is not merely hiding something from you, they are often hiding it from themselves as well. The human heart is rarely straightforward. It's layered with doubts, fears, past experiences, and unspoken hopes. That's why small, seemingly ordinary behaviors carry so much weight when looked at more carefully. One of the most overlooked signals that someone is fighting their feelings is the way they overcompensate. They might lean into casualness, acting as though nothing matters much at all. They might joke excessively, use humor to mask sincerity, or speak about you in ways that minimize importance. The paradox here is that the more they try to act like you are just another person, the clearer it becomes that you are not. They are attempting to convince themselves and everyone around them, but in doing so, they create patterns of behavior that reveal what they wish to conceal. Another sign emerges in conversations that drift off course. When someone is concealing their emotions, they often avoid direct discussion about feelings or relationships. Instead, they shift the dialogue to safe topics, areas where vulnerability is not required. Yet within these diversions, there are slip-ups, moments where their voice softens, or they hint at something deeper before pulling back. It is like watching someone walk toward a door and then suddenly retreat. You sense they were about to say something important, but fear stopped them at the threshold. These half-expressions are not meaningless. They are proof of the inner battle between honesty and restraint. The physical cues are equally telling. A person wrestling with emotions may appear restless when you're near. They adjust their posture, fiddle with objects, or avoid eye contact more than usual. These actions might seem insignificant, but they're rooted in nervous energy. The body often betrays the mind. You can silence words, but you cannot easily silence the signals of discomfort and attraction mixed together. Jordan Peterson often speaks about how people reveal themselves through the microstructures of behavior, not just in grand gestures. The nervous tap of a finger or the sudden tightening of the jaw can reveal more truth than 1,000 words. One of the deeper truths here is that resistance is often born from fear of change. To acknowledge feelings is to step into unknown territory. People crave security, and expressing hidden emotions can feel like stepping into chaos. That is why so many retreat into denial. They may already know what they feel, but saying it aloud would shift the relationship into a new dimension, one that might carry risk. They fear rejection. They fear misinterpretation, and most of all, they fear losing the fragile balance they have with you. So they fight their own impulses, convincing themselves that silence is safer. But silence is never truly silent. It echoes in every action. It shows up when someone remembers details about you that others overlook. It appears in the way they celebrate your victories more intensely than seems expected. It even emerges in the subtle disappointment that flashes across their face when you mention someone else. They may never confess it, but these reactions betray the truth they are trying to hide. The conflict becomes visible, even if words never surface. From your perspective, noticing these signs can feel both affirming and confusing. On one hand, it's proof that you matter to them in ways they won't admit. On the other hand, it creates uncertainty. If they won't acknowledge it, where does that leave you? This is where perspective becomes crucial. You cannot base your peace of mind on someone else's unresolved feelings. Instead, you must treat their hidden signals as part of their journey, not the foundation of your own. Jordan Peterson often emphasizes the importance of standing upright, metaphorically and literally, carrying yourself with responsibility regardless of what others are doing. In this case, that means recognizing someone's struggle without letting it define your sense of worth. If they are not ready to face their feelings, that is their responsibility. Your responsibility is to continue living with clarity, integrity, and courage. You cannot solve another person's hesitation, but you can ensure it doesn't hold you hostage. There's also something powerful in realizing that people often show love in the ways they resist it. Fighting feelings is not always a sign of indifference. It can be a sign of how overwhelming those feelings are. They may care so deeply that the thought of saying it feels terrifying. That doesn't excuse the lack of honesty, but it does explain the conflict. Understanding this helps shift your perspective from frustration to empathy. Instead of asking, why won't they just admit it? You might begin to see that they are carrying a weight you cannot measure. Still, empathy must be balanced with boundaries. Recognizing someone's struggle doesn't mean you wait endlessly for them to overcome it. Life is too valuable to be lived in suspense. If someone is not ready to face their truth, you must decide whether that silence is acceptable for your path. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to step forward even when they cannot. That step may create space for them to follow, or it may create the distance you need to move on. In either case, it frees you from the uncertainty of waiting for signs that may never transform into words. The irony is that when people fight their feelings, they often underestimate how much others can see. They think they are hiding successfully, but human connection runs deeper than surface behavior. You sense the hesitation, you notice the contradictions, you feel the weight of what goes unsaid. This awareness is not something to exploit, it's something to acknowledge quietly, while choosing how to respond with dignity. The lesson here is simple but difficult. Not every hidden feeling will be revealed. Some people will carry their unspoken emotions for years, trapped by their own hesitation. That is not your burden to bear. What matters is recognizing the signs for what they are, glimpses into the complexity of another person's inner life. And then choosing your own path with strength and clarity. Life is too short to be lived waiting for someone else to overcome their fears. While it's natural to notice the signals, to feel the weight of someone's hidden care, the ultimate truth is this: you are responsible for your own direction. If someone joins you openly, that is a gift. If they do not, you still move forward. Because in the end, the signs are not the destination. They are only reminders of the unspoken struggles we all carry. Human beings are rarely transparent with their emotions. We imagine that if someone feels strongly about us, they would say it directly, but life does not unfold with such simplicity. Often, the very depth of someone's feelings becomes the reason they hide them. They believe silence is safer, that suppression will protect them. Yet in truth, Their resistance often reveals more than admission ever could. Observing this struggle can be confusing, but it also teaches valuable lessons about human nature and our own role in relationships. One of the most subtle signals that someone is fighting their feelings for you is inconsistency. Their actions swing between closeness and withdrawal, enthusiasm and detachment. One moment, they are deeply engaged, offering attention, support, and energy. The next, they are distant, cold, or distracted. This is not because they don't care. It's because they care too much. The intensity unsettles them, and so they retreat to regain control. But the cycle always repeats because their emotions keep pulling them back. If you watch carefully, you'll see that this inconsistency is not random. It's a rhythm born of inner conflict. Another sign rests in the way they treat you compared to others. You may notice they hold you to a different standard, even if they don't say so. They might react more strongly to your words, feel more sensitive to your opinions, or display disappointment when you don't engage with them in the way they secretly hoped. While they may attempt to act neutral, their heightened responses betray the truth. It's as though their emotions magnify everything involving you, while they attempt to shrink it back down in appearance. This gap between their outward calm and inward intensity becomes visible over time. Sometimes, the strongest evidence lies not in what is present, but in what is absent. When someone is fighting their feelings, they often avoid moments of vulnerability. They may never ask personal questions, or they cut off conversations that get too revealing. They keep things on the surface because going deeper would risk exposing what they are hiding. Yet in that avoidance, you notice the silence itself. The absence of words, the conversations left unfinished, the feelings left unspoken. These gaps are not empty. They are filled with meaning. They tell you what they are unwilling to say aloud. Jordan Peterson often emphasizes that truth is essential for meaningful life. Yet many avoid it because truth is demanding. To acknowledge one's feelings for someone requires courage because it brings responsibility, uncertainty, and change. Those who suppress their emotions are often not lacking in care, but in courage. They fear that speaking honestly will destabilize the order of their lives, and so they live in tension, truth within, silence without. You may never hear the words, but you will always feel the strain. From your perspective, the challenge is not only in noticing these signs, but in deciding how to respond. It is tempting to interpret every hesitation, every inconsistency as proof of hidden affection. But wisdom lies in recognizing the difference between signs of care and patterns that keep you bound in uncertainty. Someone may be fighting their feelings, but if they never choose to confront them, then those feelings remain locked away. And a locked heart, no matter how full, cannot build a lasting connection. This realization can feel painful, but it is also liberating. You learn that your peace cannot depend on someone else's unresolved struggle. You can acknowledge the signals. You can feel the weight of what they leave unsaid, but you cannot live suspended in their indecision. Your task is to carry yourself with clarity, even when others cannot. Jordan Peterson often reminds people that life requires standing firm against chaos. In this context, that means standing firm even when someone else's emotions swirl in contradiction. Still, it's important to recognize the humanity in those who resist their feelings. They are not your enemy. They are not cold or uncaring. They are often protecting themselves from vulnerability, perhaps shaped by past disappointments or fears of inadequacy. Understanding this fosters compassion, not resentment. It reminds you that we all struggle with honesty in some form. We all conceal what feels too dangerous to reveal. Their hesitation mirrors the hesitation that at some point in life we all carry. But compassion does not mean waiting endlessly. To live meaningfully, you must accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. If someone is not ready to step into truth, you can respect their struggle without making it your prison. You are free to move forward, to invest in relationships built on openness and courage. Because while hidden feelings may stir curiosity, it is revealed feelings that build real connection. And if someone cannot cross that threshold, then their battle is theirs to fight, not yours to fix. The paradox of hidden emotions is that they often grow heavier the longer they are unspoken. The more someone resists, the more consumed they become by what they resist. You may notice this in the way they circle back to you again and again, unable to sever the thread even as they try to keep it invisible. They may withdraw, but they never truly leave. They may act indifferent, but small gestures keep surfacing. This paradox can hold you in place if you let it, as you wait for a clarity that may never come. But strength lies in recognizing the signs without depending on them. They show you something real, yes, but they do not give you certainty. Only their courage could do that, and courage is something they must choose themselves. So what is the lesson in all this? It is not simply about decoding someone's behavior. It is about learning to balance empathy with self-respect, patience with clarity, and understanding with boundaries. It is about realizing that human beings often live caught between what they feel and what they dare to reveal. And while you cannot force them to step out of that conflict, you can choose not to be trapped within it. In the end, when someone fights their feelings for you, you are witnessing a deeply human struggle. It is not your responsibility to resolve it, nor is it a reflection of your worth. It is simply a reminder that the heart is complicated, that courage is rare, and that honesty is the foundation on which real connection must rest. Notice the signs, respect the struggle, but never lose sight of your own path, because your life is too important to be lived waiting for someone else to find the courage you already possess.